2, part 1. This is really important chapter. Chapters 2 and 3 cover a lot of important information. That's going to be the foundation for the rest of the course. So make sure you really look these over carefully. You're going to get the elements and the principles from chapter 2, and you're going to write on this moving forward. And if you don't know these terms, they're also listed. Actually, I'll pull out of here for a second. Your elements and principles are also listed under the getting started on this course down here, right here. Okay, so look that over. There's also a link to look at it online, but they're listed here for a quicker definition list. All right, but in the book and in the PowerPoint, I'm gonna go through them. Okay, so the formal elements are here, and when we talk about describing a work formally, this is what we're talking about. What does it consist of in terms of a structure of the piece? Formalism is not to be confused with contextual analysis or other types of analysis. When you're describing something formally, you're breaking it down into the shapes, to the colors, the textures, and so on. Okay? So these are some other extras here, but your basic formal elements are line, color, light and value, texture and pattern, shape and volume, space, and time and motion. A line is basically a moving point having no length or width. Now, a line in math has a slightly different description. A line in art can be a lot of different things. They don't always have to physically exist. We could call this dotted line a line and a finger pointing to another finger. This is a linear part of a piece, so we call that a line, even though there is no line right there, and there's just the outline of the fingers if you want to get technical. Okay, so there's different types: irregular, regular, and then implied lines can be dotted, broken, or a pointing action. So be really clear when you write about a piece of art and you're going to critique your other fellow students' work, and you're going to describe what kind of line it has. If you just say it has a line, you're not going to get any credit for that. When you say it has a sketchy line or a heavy line or a broken line or whatever, then you're going to get some credit. But you also have to say where it is. Okay? So here's some examples of different lines. This is vertical. Of course, it goes up and down. Horizontal. The easy way to remember this, if you're not familiar with these terms, is that the horizon is flat and lays down. Okay, so a horizontal line is going to be going across, and a vertical will go up and down. Diagonal, of course, is going to go edge to edge. That's the diagonal. So they have different meanings in art, and artists are using them specifically at times. Sometimes it's intuitive or casual, but a lot of times they're doing it on purpose. And definitely in graphic design, it's very purposeful about what they're trying to communicate. So horizontal lines here, we equate that with inactivity. Now this goes back to our primal brain and the part of our body, the part of our mind wanting to know what kind of a body or figure is in the world and what it's doing. So if we see a figure like that, we know it's standing and is a potential threat to us. If it's laying down and sleeping, we get more relaxed looking at lines like that. So that correlates to what you see in the artwork. If we see something that looks like it's sleeping, it's laying down predominantly in a piece of art, then we know it's a relaxing picture, or we get that feeling in that case. If something's like this, if it's diagonal, that usually means like running or moving. So you look here, it says suggest movement like falling trees. But I would also say you see a lot of figures diagonally running. When you think of a guy going off from the start of a race, they're at a diagonal, okay? So vertical is potential action. So this is all basic stuff about the vertical, horizontal, diagonal that goes into our primal brain thinking about animals and other figures coming toward us and whether or not they're a threat. Okay, so line quality, the way that a line is drawn, it can be a variety of different ways. And I know that you know this and you've done this, but you're not maybe thinking about it on its own clearly. But the difference between a Sharpie and the difference between a pencil or a ballpoint pen or a gel pen, you know that those all have different line qualities, okay? So maybe certain pens that you use wouldn't be able to do this because they would just sort of be too pointy and tear the paper, right? This is all done with micron pens, which doesn't make sense to you right now. It's a specific art type of pen, and calligraphic line goes sort of chubby and then skinny and then chubby. That's done with a special point that is at an angle or a brush tip or different things like that. Jagged, that can be made with all kinds of things, okay? But there's different types of lines, and it's also relating to emotions. In this piece, when we look at, oops, lost it, Shoki the Demon, if you go back and you're thinking about Japanese and also Chinese art, but this is a Japanese piece. Um, if you're thinking about that kind of work, ink drawing, ink painting is really important to the culture, and it's one of the primary painting methods or painting materials. It's kind of a technique and a material. So here you've got heavy line here, right? You've got thinner line here. It's very calligraphic because he's using a brush. And let's see, the hair and the beard, that's very thin and small. So perhaps he's using more of a pointed tip or something smaller, okay? Artist does not ever paint a painting, no matter what kind of an artist, with one brush. That's extremely rare. Usually there's all kinds of different widths of a brush, intentions to make little lines, big lines. You can see how these are a little bit lighter than this heavier black, so that's intentional. He doesn't really want his name or the signature here to point, to pop out as much. He wants you to focus on the piece. Now, we also have a line here. Now, this is a real line and an implied line, so that's confusing. So we actually have a line here, a line here, and a line here on this sword. But the sword itself, if it didn't have a linear quality to it, even if it was a curved sword, it would be a line because it's the motion of the arm, if that makes sense. So this has a lot of real lines, and for the most part, they're all real lines describing his clothing, describing the creature here with claws, the cat, his beard, his eyebrows, everything. Okay, so range of emotions, this is kind of one of the things we're talking about. Now, this one is looser and more organic, although there are some geometric right angle type lines in here, but mostly this is loose and organic. This has hardcore geometric lines in it, and they're very crisp and I would say more thought out and precise, if that makes sense. So maybe this person's using a ruler, that kind of thing, that kind of precision. We're getting into more geometric shapes up here. Then we have an orb or a sun, and this is called The Bounds of Intellect by Paul Klee. It's Klee. Do we have another one? Yeah. This is pronounced Clay, Klee. So some of it has some soft areas, um, and some broader areas of color. So we don't say there's any lines in here. We're just having areas of color, if that makes sense. But some of the lines down here are sketchy or cross-hatching looking. Excuse me. Gesture lines are quick lines, and many times an artist does a gesture drawing before they start the real drawing. So they just want to get the motion of the figure down. They just want to get the, arms reaching up or whatever this would be. I can't even quite tell what this is, to be honest with you, from this drawing. But they're going to just get some quick things down just to get the idea of the physical nature, how it's standing. The outline. Now, these are all things, if you ever take a drawing class, you're going to go through all this stuff. But since we aren't in a drawing class and you don't actually do these exercises, there's a difference between an outline and a contour, and I'm going to explain this. An outline is going to follow the edges, all of the edges. You're not going to show the big toe. This is a foot, obviously. You're not going to show anything across or inside of the area. An outline is strictly the edges. A contour, can you see the difference? So this is an outline and this is a contour. Now a contour includes the outline. Yes, it does. It has the outline. But notice how each toe is outlined within that space, okay? Toenails are also outlined and a few of the visible lines that we see. Now there might be a lot more lines than this, but a contour drawing is going to go inside of the edges, okay? A cross contour is a different type of drawing. It's similar to contour, but cross contour is going to define the edges of the entire structure, the interior bulk of it, as to make it look more three-dimensional, to make you understand it three-dimensionally. And this is actually done. These aren't just random techniques that demonstrate line. These are actually done by different artists for different reasons, depending on what they're trying to do. So hatching and cross-hatching, similar to the contour, defining the three-dimensional shape, but it's done in a different way. So hatching is just a line going in one direction. See how it's just diagonal lines. Chick, 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 chick. The artist would just be making a bunch of hatch lines, right? Cross-hatching is that diagonal line. It exists. Then there's a horizontal, and there might even be a further diagonal or vertical going in a different way. So if you look at this, this has 1, 2, and then 3, and up here I think it's just got 1, 2, and then right in here it's got 3 and 4. Okay, so the more cross-hatching you have, the more heavy material you have, ink or pencil, and it starts to look darker. So if you do nothing, it's bright white. That's where the light's shining on it. Here's our light source. Then if you do 1 light, it gives a light gray. 2 and 3, that gives us, that's 2 right there, I'm sorry. That gives us a medium gray, and then you get a darker sort of a black with multiple cross hatching in the back. Now this is achieved with hatching as well. You can kind of see that, how they're spaced apart further, then they get denser or multiple layers of the same line. Okay, I'm going to stop there.